thanks to the funding of our DIGIKOMMUNE project that is there to support female artists and creatives. And what we do at Innova, Aspire and Innova Consultancy, we are there to support change. And we know that change it's sometimes hard. It has a lot of challenges. And what we're going to be hearing today is inspirational stories of all our artists about that transition from one fishbowl to the artistic world and how you did it, and learning from those stories. So we started almost 21 years ago, and the main aim of what we do is looking at entrepreneurship, education, employability, and well-being, but from a diversity perspective, trying to see that how we can support groups that are underrepresented in all those 4 fields. The aim of the project of DIGIKOMMUNE is funded by Erasmus Plus program, and mainly it's looking at how we could respond after COVID and supporting the arts and cultural sector, because it was very much impacted and many businesses were unable to survive as they did not have the knowledge or resources to take their businesses online. In particular, we look at women artists and creatives and the challenges they were finding. So we came together in partnership, and we really wanted to develop more digital skills amongst artists and creatives. And that's why today this place is very much about that, making sure that you have like an open studio where more members of the public and more artists can find more about our artists and support them, and also to develop those international networks. So these are our partners in Poland, in Italy, 2 organizations in Italy, the Netherlands and the UK, that are supporting our artists and creatives as we speak. Currently in Europe, many of these events are taking place. So I want to thank all of you for being here today, for supporting this great initiative, and can't wait to hear your stories. So hand over to you again, Regina. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marina. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are really excited to seize the month of March to talk to female creatives, right? Today we're going to have 2 great artists with us. Thank you, Panni and Caroline, for accepting the invitation and for joining us today. First, I'm going to introduce Panni, and afterwards I'm going to introduce Caroline for you to get to know a little bit about them, and they're going to tell us their stories themselves. So we're going to start with Panni. Panni is a creative thinker, a trained researcher. She's a qualified social worker and a teacher. She also paints and she writes. She's interested in the interconnections between everything that has a life force, and that art can create a doorway to another world. So Panni, the space is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to hopefully share screen because I'm going to talk to some images.
We can already see the background there. Seems like you're in your studio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So can you see this okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll just leave it like that rather than trying to get just the whole thing.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so really nice to see everybody today. So thank you for joining. And it's great that this is the month of International Women's Day, or month, you can say. So the first question I was asked was, what inspires me? Well, I felt I had to start with my mum, who is on the right-hand picture, and she's got like a black coat and a black hat on, but also her really good friends from Malaysia. They're women who really inspired me, because they really sort of let me know that it was important to remember that I'd got a right to be myself, to be in the world, and that I'd got the best of 2 wonderful cultures, as in Malaysian Chinese and white British. So I just wanted to mention them at first, because I think the people who inspire you are really important, as well as other things that can inspire you. So when I go, and I put this picture on because as you can see, I'm about 7 there. I'm the little girl that's got a few teeth missing, which happens around the age of 7. But it was at that time that my teacher, unbeknown to me, sent some photographs of, not photographs, some paintings of mine to the local art school. She didn't tell me. She just invited me to have a look at all the paintings she sent and told me that I'd won a scholarship there, which was like a nice surprise, but it was a bit of a shock at the time. So it was from her. Her name was Miss Swan, and at that time I was painting a lot of fire-breathing dragons, people in the local market, nature. But moving on now, I can just sort of say a little bit about the work I do. So I'm a writer. These are a few of the things that I've had published in different books, magazines, newspapers. So that's something that I'm very keen on. But I also started doing a lot of that at the same age and was often asked to read out in class. I'm just speaking about these very early times because I think it's important to remember for, you know, little girls, how much inspiration they need and how much they need encouragement. I'm also a painter. There's just a few of my paintings. I might show more as we go on. And that's some of my live art. So that's with people interacting in spaces where there's the natural world. So it's about that interconnection that Regina spoke about earlier. This is another piece that I could say is live art. This was a multicultural festival in the top there that I initiated, and this is the bottom image is of an event I organised called Peace Servings. So there's just on this one, this is some of the exhibitions I've been in. You can see the top one here. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So this was in Qingdao, and that was the painting there that I did of a local scene in Sheffield looking over Burngreave. And I've become part of an international women's artists network. Whoops, sorry, I've gone too far ahead there. I've also started combining my art and my writing, and I put together this journey from last year because I actually got COVID last year in July, and it really knocked it out of me. I had long COVID, so it was terrible fatigue. But when I look back over the year, I'd actually created quite a lot. So I'm going to stop sharing now so that you can see the video, because I think, Regina, it works best if you show it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll share it right now.
In quietness, I
Can you hear it as well?
the year looking through the window of possibility and meditating on the lotus, and frog made me hear the call of the sea. And soon I found myself washed upon the shores of the Pingo in Kenya. Stepping out, I could hear the wagtails overhead and abundant flowers and seeds dropping on the ground each day. Swimming in the pool, I contemplate that at this time of year snowdrops are popping up in England, and although there's no tigers to be seen here in Africa, it's the year of the tiger for the Lunar New Year. And out on the street there was such vibrant, colourful activity. And then we landed in the Masai Mara and saw many animals I'd painted the year before. It was a dream come true. And we saw the Masai people living so lightly on the land. But back home, Putin's war on Ukraine had begun, and I sent messages of hope and peace in exhibitions in Sheffield. And then spring came, bringing equal day and night, and daffodils bursting from the ground, and cake making, and more drawing. Then Easter in Whitby, and Maytime lighting the fire of hope, of new life, abundant seeds, and visits to the sculpture park, and so many flowers bursting forth in complete and utter beauty, taking us into the eye of the summer solstice. Then COVID bloomed in me with the sunflowers. A September rain tree painting request happened minutes at a time, to be published worldwide, and then I began to draw a little bit more, and workshops with a flamenco dancer set my beat going. Sometimes I went a little too fast, but winter took me into that stillness until the waves called me back to the sea, to the Mediterranean and the Taurus mountains, and the hot sun revived me and sent me home restored, back to the English winter, still having to pace energy, but with deeper knowing of what is important to me. And that is how 2022 was, before and after COVID.
Thank you for sharing. So it's just an example, and it shows more of the paintings as well.
These are all your paintings, yeah?
Yeah, they're all my paintings. And when I got to the end of the year and felt that so much of it I'd been sleeping because of the fatigue, I realised that I'd actually done a lot of work. Surprisingly.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. Yeah, those are quite a lot of paintings.
Yeah, of course, a lot of it was before I got COVID.
It made me really want to go on holidays, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, beautiful places. Yeah.
And that really gave rejuvenation going on the holidays. That was really a good thing. So going back to the PowerPoint that I've prepared here, thinking about what inspires me as well, I think living in Britain, you can't forget the suffragettes and how important it is to remember those women and what they did. And this was a painting that I did in connection with South Korea and an exhibition they had for celebrating their 123 years of the women and right. I think it was called a constitution. So this is a painting, I've actually got it here behind me as well, that I did for that, just to show you a little bit of other things. And if you don't mind another video, this is a short one. This is more using more poetry, but with live painting. So I'll stop sharing again. This one is shorter. This is about just over a minute, I think. Yeah.
Right.
As autumn lay her cloak of orange, green, gold upon the earth, I planted little bulbs of hope. I sank deep into winter's cold embrace that submerged me in crystals that dazzled and dazed me. I surrendered to her icicle touch and bathed in the sweet milk that nourished my roots. And up above, the sunbeams bounced and whispered, "Wake, wake up from your slumber. Now is the time to bring new life. Birthed from your deep sleep, allow your pods of knowledge to ripen and burst forth the white kisses of hope you long forgot. Lay your garlands of petals to gleam and glisten on the thawing ground as the birds call out. Open your flowers to welcome spring that heralds the midwife to come do her work. And then just breathe, and breathe in the mystery of what is, and simply trust."
Thank you. So that was where I was like combining more of the poetry with the painting. And it's also something I've been learning to do, is to make these little videos, which is quite a thing. Sort of trying to...
I was going to ask, when did you start making these videos? Because that's a whole different thing, isn't it? Like it allows you to combine both your writing and your painting.
Yeah, I think in the lockdown, the first lockdown, I led some children's art classes, and then found that it was they needed to see me as well as me painting. So I got an iPad on a stand so that they could see me painting and they could see me speaking to them as well. So that started giving me the idea that if I could do it for the children, painting and talking to them, I could combine poetry and painting. So it was a trial and error. I actually painted quite a few snowdrop paintings before I got the video of the right one, because of course when you finish the painting and it's filmed, you can't really go back and change it because it was all live. This is so no more videos now, and I'll just come to the conclusion. This is Professor Margaret Harrison. She's somebody who really inspired me, and she's done a lot of women's work. She's retired now, but this is a piece that she did about the home workers, and that she inspired me to do a PhD, and that was what was my PhD was on. So it was on 5 contemporary British Chinese artists. It's a long title. I won't read it all out, but it's there on the screen. And these were the other 4 artists that I researched. I'm just moving on now because the next thing is about what is my creative process, was a question I was asked. So the first photograph on the left is just showing, you know, lovely places that I love to walk in nature, because that really helps me processing. And I think it's really important to find that still place inside yourself to enable the creativity to flow. I've also put this lone tree that was actually on the Masai Mara, because I do need a lot of alone time to create. I think that's a really important part of being a creative, if it's art and writing. But I can say as well that although, you know, I have to try things out on my own, like I said with the snowdrop painting, I did like lots of those paintings before I got the video and the speaking together and right sync and everything. But with writing, I also do workshops with other people. So we read each other's work in advance and critique them, and that like really helps. And I also keep my art practice up in groups. I belong to various different art groups, and that is a really good thing to do as well. I don't necessarily consider what I do, the work I do in those art groups, is of the work that I want to necessarily always do, but it's that the importance of keeping practice going. And of course, with the writing, there's loads of editing. Loads and loads of editing. You might edit it yourself, then you get feedback off other people and you think, well, yeah, maybe there's more adjustments. So I think the other question that how do you address creative practice and practical challenges within your field? So with paintings, I will often, if I feel like I'm getting stuck, I'll leave it for at least 1 night's sleep. It's probably better if it's 2 nights sleep, because then you come back at it fresh, and it makes a really big difference, I think, because we can all get mentally tangled up in things aren't working, and sometimes you look at it the next day and it's a lot better than you thought it was, or you found solutions. Sometimes I draw things completely different to what the painting's about. There's something to do with that, doing something completely different, that helps the creativity flow, I find personally anyway. With my writing, I often plan it out on sheets of paper, like the main storyline, and I'll literally lay them out on the floor and walk through the story. It's just like the main points, and for me that really helps to do that. Plans ahead. I'm writing a novel at the moment, so I've just done a few chapters of that already. I'm writing more short stories for a collection, and I want to do a lot more paintings with to do with connection. There's an example of one here on the right as I'm looking at the screen. I think it will be the same for you. So those are my plans ahead, and that's how I can be contacted, and hopefully that might get circulated anyway as well. So I'm not quite sure how we are for time, but hopefully that was fine.
Yeah, thank you, Panni. Thank you. I'm gonna try and share some of those links here with the participants just so that they have it at hand. There you go.
Shall I stop sharing now?
Yes, thank you, Panni.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was going to ask before we move on to Caroline, would you consider yourself to be an interdisciplinary artist then? Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think the more, you know, like, I think thinking back in time, I did make videos of the live art, but it was only in the lockdown that I started combining the painting with prose or poems to make a video.
And question, would you say that you live from art, that art is like your livelihood? And if so, how do you get to that point? Because I know that a lot of people out there are really trying to get to where you are. And it's hard. It's like, I think it's a hard feeling. It's a hard business as well. If you want to like monetize from your creations, how do you address that?
So for me, what I found works best is to work part-time and in an employed job that's nothing necessarily to do with art. So that's the way I manage it. I've had years, I did quite a few years when I worked completely freelance, and it was that sort of feast and famine thing. And when it was the famine thing, personally, I was a little bit too like worried there wouldn't be a feast again. So I found, like, just to settle myself and so I could focus on my creativity, I work part-time. So I work for a completely different organization. But I suppose I bring creative thinking into that job though as well.
All right. So yeah. That's a strategy, right? That you can use to keep nourishing these other passions that in our society, unfortunately, are not as acknowledged as other professions, right? And as you said, during COVID, art was the thing that sort of got us through that difficult time, at least in my case. So I appreciate that, Panni. Thank you so much for sharing. Just to have, so that Caroline has enough time, if anyone has a question, you can just drop them on the chat, and when we finish, we'll go through them. Thank you, Panni. So now I'm gonna introduce you all to Caroline. We've been dealing with painting and writing, and this is most for like adults, right? We tend to think that art is for adults, but Caroline here gives us like a fresh perspective on that, and I really want to see her take on how did she came up with her project. Well, Caroline is the founder of the Fredbert Fuzz Project, which transformed her passion for sewing and storytelling into a children's book to help them grow into a happy, well-rounded, and confident individual. So, Caroline, the space is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, so like Regina says, I am the founder of the Fredbert Fuzz Project, and I will share my screen with you so you can get a kind of insight into what the Fredbert Fuzz Project is. Right then.
I love it because your hoodie is that the logo on your hoodie?
It is. It's my Fredbert hoodie. And I'll introduce you to Fredbert in just a moment. Right, can you see
Excellent.
my screen?
Yes, we can.
Right, okay, so Fredbert Fuzz is, well, in fact, I'll start with me rather than Fredbert. So I am Caroline. I'm based in Doncaster in South Yorkshire. Here's a picture of me and my partner and one of my children. I've got two girls. You can see them in front of the snowman here. And I've put this little quote in, you can take the girl out of travel, but you can't take travel out of the girl. I've put this in because I am passionate about travel. I love exploring. I've been to a lot of places in the world, and it is one of my passions. And until recently, I was working as a travel consultant. Just last month, I closed my franchise, which I'll talk about more in a moment. So travel is still a big thing. It's still something I'm interested in. And this picture with the snow was taken in December when I went to Switzerland with my little girls, and I joined my nieces, who were the other two girls there, and my sister's the one behind me. And then these are my two girls sitting with the dog. And then it's my dog and my tortoise.
Now I feel like I have to know your dog's name. Please
My dog's
do
called
tell.
JD. JD, just the letters JD. And my tortoise is called Barbara, if anyone's interested. And then here is Fredbert. So Fredbert Fuzz is the kind of the central point of my project. And this is the real Fredbert. So he's a sock monkey I made. He's made from socks. And I will just talk about how he started. Oh, and here's a picture of me and Fredbert. So if we go back to when Fredbert Fuzz first came around, it was back in 2011, and I made and sold sock monkeys. So one day I had the urge to just make a sock monkey from scratch. I Googled how to do it. I probably watched YouTube videos, I can't really remember, but I bought a sewing machine and I started to get creative with socks. And this sock monkey, Gilbert, is the very first monkey I ever made. And I gave him to a friend. She loved him. Her friends then wanted monkeys, and that's when Monkey Fuzz was born. So that was the name of my sock monkey business. And Fredbert was the first. He wasn't the first monkey. He was the monkey that I made and kind of kept for myself. So he was my sidekick, if you like. And what I found was Fredbert started to kind of get his own following. So he was on social media, and he started to get invited by local businesses to have his photo taken with their products, their logos, including Lush. I don't know if you're familiar with store Lush. Here's Fredbert inside Lush in Doncaster, having his picture taken with their products and the Gorilla perfume. And then these are some of the other monkeys I made. And this was the Doncaster Business Showcase. This was 2012. So Monkey Fuzz had a bit of a following then. And then, oh, I've jumped the gun. And then I broke my arm. So in 2012, I broke my arm. I couldn't create anymore. I couldn't sew. And I kind of realized I couldn't support myself. So everything kind of got parked while I looked for a job. So I had some way to support myself. And as things happened, I ended up training to be a counsellor. Fredbert got parked, and it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something more with him, but life just took a different turn. I met my partner, I had kids, and things happen, you know, life takes a different turn. And then we hit COVID, and we've already heard themes of how COVID's impacted us all today. During the lockdown, my daughter found Fredbert in our spare room, and she loved him. And here are my two daughters with Fredbert. They absolutely adored him, and it kind of got my creative cogs rolling again. So at this point, I was now a kind of almost newly qualified travel consultant, as I got made redundant from a counselling job, decided to go self-employed and take a completely different career change. So COVID meant travel wasn't really happening. Things were fairly quiet, and so my creative cogs started flowing again, and I was thinking, what can I do with Fredbert? Now, because Fredbert's quite a cheeky character, he thinks quite highly of himself. That's where the idea of children's self-love, well-being came from. And so Fredbert started to kind of develop in different guises, and I started to think about creating books and materials for him with the aim to promote positivity. And so this is the logo I got made based on the real Fredbert. Got some branding and a website, which is here.
Do you know anything about marketing or branding before you started this?
Not really, a little bit, but I've had some sort of business marketing experience from my days as a travel consultant, because I had to get myself out there. What's different though, that was a franchise, so that was all taken care of, and I just had the materials all ready to share. But this was my own baby. This is something I created myself completely from scratch. So I wouldn't say I had the marketing know-how in that sense. but I did get some support. I managed to win a couple of grants, which paid for the website and the logo, and it helped me get started, which was great.
Where do you go to find that information about, for instance, like getting funding for your project? Because I know that a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's been mostly through networking. So I was kind of networking through my travel business and making contacts. And then when I started to develop Fredbert, I kind of just reached out to my network and asked, where can I go to? There are organisations, I can't speak for every town and city, but in Doncaster, there's organisations for new businesses that get you started. They give you the kind of the training in some aspects. You know, they give you, there's a lot of stuff out there I've found. It's just a case of where to find it. So for me, there's Success Doncaster. I think it's changed names now. It's called Business Doncaster now. And it's kind of channeling those contacts and finding out who knows who can help, who can put me in touch with who. And I've just kind of used that resource to my advantage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I keep hearing, and the same thing happened in the conversation we had yesterday with the creatives from the Netherlands, networking, right? The importance of networking.
Yes.
And getting close to people who are in your field, because they're going to give you some like very useful tips on how to navigate, especially when you're starting, right?
Absolutely, definitely. And I think networking has been brilliant for me. It really has, and it's opened up so many doors. And, you know, this is a way of networking as well. It's through sort of getting onto a course that I've been invited to join this. So take that opportunity. If there's any networking going on, take that opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, you carry on.
Okay, so this is just a bit of blurb about the Fredbert Fuzz Project. Just the idea is to spread happy vibes to the small people in our world, promote positivity, and help our human babies, our little children, to grow up to be confident, well-rounded and resilient individuals. Especially now, I'm so aware. I've got two daughters there. They've just turned 4 and the other one is 3 in 2 weeks. And I am just so conscious of what they're picking up from the outside world, all the messages that they're absorbing. And as they grow older, they're going to be affected by social media, the news. And so I'm wanting something to help give them those skills so they are resilient. I can't hide them from bad things that are happening. I can't stop them from hearing negative things, and I don't want to, but I do want to kind of make them able to take that in and be resilient to it, and also be confident in themselves to sort of, so they understand that they are brilliant, they're fabulous, they can do what they want to achieve, and, you know, to, I guess, like I say, just help them be resilient. So that's kind of my inspiration, I guess, is giving children the tools so they are able to go out there and achieve what they want to achieve and think they're fabulous and they can do it and have that growth mindset. So that's, yeah, they're the principles behind the Fredbert Fuzz Project.
Have you written anything before you venture into writing a children's book?
Not so much. I've written well, I say I've written novels. I've written chapters of novels. I've always kind of wanted to write, but what I've written before have been, I guess, scraps of book ideas for children, for adults. I've just got lots of different ideas where I've sounded out to myself. I've put notes down. I've done scribbles and drawings and doodles, and so I've always had loads of ideas, but I've never kind of utilised that and put it together to make anything like a book until now. So I decided to write Fredbert's Book of Self-Love. It's been a childhood ambition to write a children's book. It's here, and you'll see a bit more in the presentation. That just kind of, it's using Fredbert, images of Fredbert. Introducing the idea of self-love to children and simple ways they can practice it. So here it is with me. That's the cover. And here are some small people enjoying it. And this is a little video I put together. Just a little promo video. And what I did, I self-published it. So I used Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing program. I put the book together myself. I used Canva to illustrate it. So all the images inside the book are made through Canva, and photos of Fredbert with different background overlays, different images all put together. So it was done completely by myself. I've used Amazon to publish it, so it's out there on Amazon now. And that's the kind of book in a nutshell and the project. But in terms of moving forwards, what I want to do is bring out a lot more resources aimed at children based on Fredbert. So I've got other ideas for books all around the wellbeing theme. I've got a set of affirmation cards that my designer's just been working on to bring out kind of imminently. And then I'm looking at worksheets as well. I'm just in the process of chatting with schools and people in the educational field to kind of work out what's needed in terms of resources for children in schools around emotional well-being, what's missing, what there's a lack on, and I'm going to use that research to develop some worksheets. So that's where I'm at now. And thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. How has it been received by the main target group, which is children, right? What's the reaction you get from them?
It's been really positive, and I kind of use my own children as my product testers. So they're the ones that first saw the book.
Yeah, very convenient, very convenient.
Yeah, they've been really handy. So they love Fredbert, and it's so heartwarming for me now when they actually choose the book to be read to. You know, we let them go and choose what book they want to read, and then when they come back with this one, it's just so heartwarming that they do go back to it again and again. And now my daughter, my 4-year-old, is at an age where she's able to discuss the concepts in the book and she's understanding them. Whereas my younger daughter, she loves the pictures, she loves Fredbert, but I'm not quite sure she's really there with understanding the concepts yet. But the idea is that she just absorbs all these positive messages, and then as she grows a little bit older, she'll be able to kind of reflect on them and talk about them. And what I'm also hoping for as well with the book is to help parents kind of, you know, I think it begins at home, it begins with the parents. And if parents are demonstrating that they can love themselves in front of their children, that's going to be positive for the kids. So I'm hoping that the parents will sort of take on board what is in the book, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I misread, but I think I read somewhere that you were thinking about maybe working on a second book.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's fake gossips that I
no. I do have lots of ideas, and I want to bring out a whole series of books. So it is something that is in the pipeline. I think my struggle at the moment is deciding which angle to go at, which concept I'm going to use for my next book. I've got lots of ideas. I want to use Fredbert and his sort of monkey friends and do something around diversity. I want to do something on sustainability. Especially this week is Keep Britain Tidy Week. I think that starts today, or maybe it's a couple of weeks, but you know, there's lots of different angles I want to go at. So my biggest struggle is deciding what's next. But yeah, there's definitely more books in the pipeline.
Thank you for sharing, Caroline.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone here in the Zoom room has any questions for our two artists now that they're here. If you want to stop sharing your screen, Caroline, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah. It says, this is for Panni, it says, do you think if you never received the scholarship, you would still have gone down the art route?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever thought about it before because I was so young when that happened. I know at that age, regardless of the scholarship to the art school, that I was really enjoying doing a lot of creative writing and the storytelling. And I think that would have come back at some point. I think probably the same thing with the art. And I did, when I first left school, I went and did the social studies degree and social work qualification. And then there was this burning desire to do creative practice. And that came back again when I was pregnant with my first child and on maternity leave, because suddenly there was that space to do it again. So it did go on hold for quite a while because that was, you know, the girls' high school I went to, they really wanted you to go and do something that was not really art. They said, what else do you like doing though? You know, so that's how I ended up doing the social work one.
Thank you. Marina, I don't know if you have any
Yes,
questions.
I have a lot of questions, but I want to take. Oh, Helen, you have a question. Go ahead first.
Well, I was just really, I wanted to say I was really impressed with both of your videos. So I know how hard it is. I'm working on editing some videos of my work, and it's really hard. So I'm really impressed of both of those. And so a question, Caroline, I just wanted to know whether you could sew again now.
Yes, my arms are fully functioning. Yeah, I've not gone back to the sewing machine, and it's often asked if I'm planning to make more sock monkeys. It's not in the pipeline, but it's not something I've ruled out.
Yeah, I mean, as a textile mixed media artist, I can't imagine not being able to sew. And
yeah,
I injured my foot earlier in this year, and I was so glad I'd got a sewing machine with a start-stop button, not having to use a foot pedal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, glad to hear you can sew again.
Yes, I can. I'm functioning again.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Panni, and also for you, Caroline. Panni, I do remember when we met and it was the COVID period. So I think what I think the story you're telling us is how much you have benefited from all your experiences as an artist, right? And I'm also interested to hear about your international upbringing and how do you see that in your art?
My international upbringing, did you say?
That's right.
Yes, I think definitely when I did a PhD, that was really key because I was researching all that, you know, the dual heritage and also the other artists that I research. They were all British Chinese, as in living in Britain with Chinese heritage, but one had lived in Canada for a long time, another was born in Hong Kong. You know, so that was really quite key. I think definitely with some of the live art pieces, it's been really, really significant because I've definitely had a real drive to try and be as inclusive as possible. And I know when I've been speaking to some people that have got involved in things, especially like the Multicultural Festival, it was called at that time. Now you might call it a diversity festival or something like that, but then that was the way to call it. I think it really helped some people to get involved because they felt they'd got something in common with me, even though they might have been from Pakistan, say. Just knowing that I knew what it was like to have family in other countries made a connection there. So it's very hard to say, but there's some sort of difference in knowing that somebody's got an international background, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be non-white, but just somebody else who knows what it's like to live somewhere else and be from a different culture. And then there's lots of different cultures in Britain, of course, anyway. I was speaking to somebody yesterday from Leeds and they've got a really strong accent and we were just talking about that. So yeah, I think that bridging boundaries been a key part of my work.
Beautiful, Bridging boundaries. I love that word, Panni. Caroline, you were telling me about how you self-publish and how you use Canva. And I think one of the main important things about entrepreneurship we always talk is about being resourceful. So how did you find all about that? Was it just yourself? Did you team up with other women for ideas? How did you become so resourceful in terms of finding all the tools that you needed?
I think it's a bit of both. So through my own research, but also, again, I suppose it's going back to that networking thing, being, using who I've got around me and tapping into their knowledge as well. So I couldn't tell you how I first found out about self-publishing, but I think a key factor for me was I can be quite impatient. So when I want to do something, I want to do it now. And the traditional publishing route, to my understanding, would have taken quite a long time had I been able to get sort of to that point where a publisher would want to take me on. So to me, self-publishing was the quickest option, and that ticked off my impatience box, I guess. But yeah, tapping into my network and finding out what other people have done and how they've done it and how I can do that, I guess.
Thank you. Any other questions that you might have for Panni or Caroline? Because I have loads, but I don't want to take over. So
Yeah, I have a couple too, but I want to see if someone wants to ask them something. Well, I was gonna...
Viviana, I think Viviana put her hand up. Is that right,
Yes.
Viviana? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Continuing with the question for Caroline, did you had like some challenging moments where you really thought about stop everything and don't do that, and how did you manage that struggle?
Yes, I guess, yeah. That one's quite tricky to answer, but it's quite profound for me. With the Fredbert Fuzz Project, that's always been my baby. And once I kind of started to run with it, in my mind, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to run with it. But at the same time as sort of working on that project, I was also working as a travel consultant. And what I was finding was things were getting a bit too much because I was getting busy with that and with childcare as well, with my two little ones. I was just finding I was on my laptop ignoring them while I had to get something done. And to me, it got to the point where something had to give, but which way do I go? And I think because Fredbert is my baby and the travel franchise was not my baby as such, that was the one that I had to give. So yeah, in a way I did pack it in, but not my project, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is there a story why the name is Fredbert, or?
It goes a long way back. So when I was growing up, I had two soft toys. I had a yellow teddy bear that I've had since I was a baby, and I've still got him, and I just always loved him. He was called Fred. And I had another soft toy called Filbert, who was like one of my favorites as well, and put the names together and it came up with Fredbert. And then I think one of my ex-boyfriends, when I was a teenager, his first car he named Fredbert based on my Fred and Filbert, and the name's kind of always been there, I guess. And then it worked quite well with Fuzz because I started Monkey Fuzz, and then Fredbert became Fredbert Fuzz.
Yeah, I love the name.
It suits him.
Yes.
Both of you, your social media to promote your work, do you do that? Do you feel like it's something that you still need to explore in order to increase your outreach? Are you doing it right now? Because right nowadays everything's like a lot of online. We have a lot of online resources, similar to what Marina was saying. But increasing outreach on social media is not an easy job, right? So I'm just asking, how are you engaging with an audience through social media?
Do you want to go, Panni?
Yeah, it's I was
Think about it. You can think about it. I know it's a hard question.
it was hard to know who was going to go first, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline. So yeah, I do it. I probably should do it more, but I was also going to say, when I finished the video of my year you know, in which I got COVID, I really did the video at first because I was thinking, oh, this is so good that I actually did do a lot of work, and I could started thinking this story, so it came from a creative aspect and it felt a sense of completion, and I thought, well, I'll share it. So I sent it to some people, but something that I didn't expect is that I got a painting and prints orders from it, and I actually hadn't got that in mind when I was making it. So I was quite surprised when that happened, but it just shows, doesn't it, when you share things, that you get those sort of results sometimes as well. But I think for me, it's important that I'm doing things because it's from the creativity, not because it's about trying to sell. That's otherwise it would affect what I create. But I could probably do with much more outreach with the social media, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would, to echo that, social media is something I'm doing, mainly Instagram and Facebook, and I'm getting things out there. I'm starting to get a bit more comfortable with doing reels because I hear that's the big thing. But I find you can spend all your time on social media. You could do it as a full-time job and still not, you know, be perfect at it. And I do find the reach is a struggle. But I'm starting to make peace with that. And if I do a post on whatever platform, it's something that I'm aligned with and I feel comfortable with. I'm not doing it, you know, for the engagement as such, although that's nice, but I'm sharing something because at that point in time I feel aligned to do it and happy to do it. But it is a struggle. It's just so hard to keep up with all the algorithms and, you know, what's popular, what's trending, what's blah.
What hashtag to use, right?
yeah, and it's always changing as well. So I'm on it, but I know that I could up my game, but that in itself is a full-time job, and that takes me away from the actual creating. You know, I could be working on a new book, but I know it's something that I have to do.
And maybe for the both of you, because we still have a few minutes, I wanted to ask, how do you perceive the creative landscape in Yorkshire? Obviously, since both of you are based here, and I know that a lot of the people joining us today are also located in this region. How do you find that? Is it welcoming? If you can just describe a little bit of your perceptions or the spaces that you've encountered along your journey.
Shall I go first, Cara?
Yeah.
I think definitely in Sheffield, where I'm based, and I think probably for the whole of Yorkshire, there are actually a lot of artists. There really are a lot. And there isn't necessarily a lot of disposable income. There are obviously some people that do have, but I've found sometimes that people have been very keen to come to exhibitions and perhaps buy cards, but not necessarily bigger paintings. And sometimes it happens. So that is something, you know, that I know that other artists speak about as well, that there isn't the market isn't so much as it might be down in London, say, or something like that.
There's always shipping, right? Thank you for that. Yeah, we can always post it to someone. So yeah, thank you.
Shipping, yes. Yeah.
Caroline, what has been your
Yeah,
experience?
I think there is what's the word? I guess there are creative platforms in and around where I am, and I do quite often see initiatives from places like the council, you know, for people to go and showcase their projects or work that aren't necessarily sort of an artist's, what am I trying to say? Like, they aren't necessarily aimed at artists as such, but I can also tap into the well-being sector and the children's sector, I suppose, as well as creative. So there are outlets out there, but I guess, yeah, Panni said there's also a budget for things, isn't there? And it's not one of the most prioritized industries. But I think for me personally, it does help that I can go down the well-being route and the children's route.
Yeah.
I have a burning question for both of you. Panni, if you could go back in time, what message will you give to your younger self?
To my younger self, I would think that I should, when I first left university, I went straight into a social work job because that's what I just qualified to do. And it was probably a lot more hairy than I was expecting it to do. And I thought I was going to do so much preventative work and lots of lovely workshops with people and it wasn't really quite like that. So I think I would say that to my younger self, that it would have been better to have gone part-time right from the beginning. And then I could have kept on with my art practice instead of having to put it on hold for such a long time, because, you know, when you're doing full-on social work, you do have sleepless nights sometimes because you're dealing with people's lives. So it's not a very good motivator for creativity when you're
drained, when you're drained like that.
Yeah, so that's what I'd have said to my younger self.
Thank you, Panni. Caroline?
You know what, that is such a hard question to answer, because there's a lot of things I would have probably changed about, you know, what I've done in the past. But when I think about it, it's all led me to being here now and the path my life has taken. I wouldn't necessarily have my 2 daughters if I'd done different things. So it is a hard question to answer. But what I will say is, when I was kind of growing up, when I was a teenager and quite strongly influenced by other people's opinions, that's had an impact on what I've then gone on to do, what I've gone on to study. And it's not necessarily been what I might have chosen, what my heart would have chosen. So I'd say follow your heart more and your intuition, and be less influenced by what grown-ups are telling you to do, because what they think is right.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Regina.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as we say in Spanish, buen provecho to everyone out there who's eating their food right now. We know this is lunchtime, so thank you for joining us. Thank you both, Panni and Caroline, for sharing your knowledge and your journey with us today. I know that we're taking some very good advices from you to keep growing our businesses and to keep nourishing our creativity. So just letting everyone know, just a quick reminder that we're going to carry on with these conversations next week. We have on Thursday, we're going to have a conversation with creatives from the Netherlands. That would be at 12 p.m. our time. And on Friday, we're going to continue with a conversation with both Helen and Vivi, who are joining us here today as well. So looking forward to that. And that's going to be on Friday, same time, 1 to 2 p.m. So yes, thank you for joining us. Enjoy your weekend, Marina.
And please do not forget to complete the evaluation form. Very, very much appreciated. If you can please click on the link that is in the chat. It will just literally take you 2 seconds. But as this program is funded, it's really important that we give our funding body this evaluation form. So thank you very much for helping us with that. And when we close the room, you will lose the chat. So please make sure you click on the link so it's opening another window, the evaluation form. We'll very much appreciate your help with that. And thank you very much to all of you, and wish you a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Panni. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing your stories.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.